SpongeBob has one rule it never breaks. Doesn't matter if the world's ending, buildings explode, or Bikini Bottom's literally on fire. By the next episode, everything's back to normal. Nobody grows up, and absolutely no one dies. That's the charm of it. But the show quietly broke this rule once. Two beloved characters simply vanished from the spotlight without explanation. They'd still show up occasionally in the background, but their story had ended. The show never acknowledged it. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy first appeared in Season 1. They were washed-up superheroes living in a retirement home, old, confused, and half the time unsure what was happening around them. They weren't supposed to be legendary figures. Their flaws were the whole point. But to SpongeBob and Patrick, they were everything. These weren't just side characters. They created an entire mythology within the show. The Mermalair, their secret underwater base filled with gadgets and memories. Classic villains like Man Ray and the Dirty Bubble. Every appearance connected SpongeBob to a larger world beyond his usual routine. They were relics from a forgotten era, tired and hilariously out of touch, which somehow made them more heroic. They didn't need to be perfect, they just needed to try. Many fans considered them as iconic as SpongeBob himself. In a show where everything resets every 11 minutes, they brought unexpected depth. They gave Bikini Bottom history and a sense of time passing, something rare in such a timeless world. What made these heroes truly special wasn't just their stories, it was the actors behind the voices. Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway weren't random voice actors chosen for a cartoon. Borgnine was an Oscar winner, known for war dramas and action films. Conway was a comedy legend, famous for his perfect timing and classic sketches. Yet here they were, playing a confused old superhero and his cranky sidekick in a show about sea creatures. Somehow, it worked brilliantly. Borgnine gave Mermaid Man wild, chaotic energy. Every line sounded like a shouted command mixed with a forgotten punchline. Conway nailed Barnacle Boy's deadpan delivery, always annoyed, unimpressed, and slightly behind whatever chaos was happening. Together, they felt authentic. They didn't sound like actors pretending to be characters. They sounded like two guys who'd been doing this for decades and still enjoyed it. That chemistry made every appearance feel special. It wasn't just nostalgia, it had heart. They gave the characters genuine soul. But legends can't stay forever. By the early 2000s, when SpongeBob reached its peak popularity, both actors were well into their 80s. It was remarkable they kept returning as long as they did. Eventually, time caught up. Ernest Borgnine died in 2012 at age 95. Just weeks before his death, he recorded what became Mermaid Man's final episode, Patrick Man. His last lines weren't dramatic farewells. They were typical Mermaid Man nonsense, but they felt like quietly passing the torch. After that, Mermaid Man's voice went silent. Tim Conway stepped away out of respect. No announcement, he just stopped. Conway died in 2019. Both heroes were gone not just from the show, but from the world. Then things got weird. Even though the actors had died, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy never officially left the show. They kept appearing in background shots and crowd scenes, but silent. The writers seemed unsure what to do with them. No new dialogue, no replacement actors, just silence. In a show when nobody ever really dies, silence became the loudest thing possible. For years, the show ignored their absence completely. Then, Season 11 finally offered an explanation, sort of. In an episode featuring Man Ray, Bikini Bottom faced danger. Time to call the heroes. Except they couldn't, because Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy were taking a cryonic nap, frozen in time, literally sleeping. They'd wake up in a week, just not this week, or next week, or any week in the following 100 episodes. It seemed clever, a way to explain their silence without recasting. They weren't dead, just resting. But many fans found it disrespectful. Instead of a proper goodbye, the show hit pause and never resumed. What started as a tribute became limbo. Not alive, not gone, just stuck. In a world where nothing ever changes, that felt worse than letting them go. Then Season 14 introduced something new. SpongeBob and Patrick became obsessed with a cheesy black and white superhero show show called The Kelp Bed Kids. It featured 1950s tropes, over-the-top villains, and a hero named Hoops who saved the day by throwing literal hoops at criminals. Initially, it seemed like simple parody, a fun joke about nostalgia and old cartoons, but it went further. SpongeBob and Patrick tracked down Hoops in real life. They found his house, broke in, and discovered he wasn't a kid anymore. He was Old Man Walker, now retired, forgotten, living in a dusty shrine to his glory days. Sound familiar? The episode ended with Hoops and his old nemesis Ajax fighting outside Shady Shoals retirement home, the same place Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy lived. They battled, won, and finished with a cheesy one-liner straight from their fake TV show. It was well executed and funny, but for longtime fans, it stung. This wasn't just a new character, it was a complete replica of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy's story. Old hero, lost fame, quiet retirement, surprise comeback, beat for beat, the same narrative. Except this time, it wasn't the legends fans grew up with, it was someone else filling their role.
The question isn't whether it was meant as tribute. The question is why Hoops got a proper ending when the original heroes never did. Years after Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy disappeared, the show created someone new. Not officially as a replacement, but that's exactly how it felt. Was it clever homage? Maybe, but to many viewers, it felt like a substitute nobody asked for. Whether the creators intended it or not, it raised an uncomfortable question. Why did Hoops get a complete story when the heroes who inspired him never got closure? There was never going to be a perfect solution. The voices were gone. The actors who gave these characters their charm, humor, and heart weren't coming back. SpongeBob, more than most shows, understands how irreplaceable the right voice can be. But there were other options. They didn't need to recast. They didn't need a dramatic final mission episode. One quiet moment would have been enough. One story told from someone else's perspective. Picture SpongeBob and Patrick returning to the Mermalair years later, but it's abandoned now. Cobwebs cover the orb of confusion. Costumes sit sealed behind glass. Dust coats every console. No voices. Maybe a simple plaque, a brief message, a wordless tribute to the heroes who once protected the sea. Or maybe Man Ray finally wins because nobody's around to stop him, until SpongeBob discovers an old recording, a tape from Mermaid Man himself, full of his usual nonsense but also genuine heart. Not a comeback, but a reminder of what it meant to keep trying. There were dozens of ways to say goodbye without breaking the show's magic. Instead, SpongeBob chose to say nothing. They left the characters frozen in time, not honored, not remembered, just paused, as if their story was too inconvenient to finish. Maybe the writers thought they were being respectful. Maybe silence felt like the safest choice. But for characters who carried such weight in a world where nothing ages, that silence didn't feel careful. It felt incomplete. When you don't give something an ending, you don't preserve it, you abandon it. For a show where nothing truly ends, this silence feels strangely final. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy didn't get a farewell, not even a final punchline, just background cameos and a running joke about cryosleep. But for fans who grew up watching them, that absence wasn't subtle, it was deafening. These weren't just comedic side characters, they were the only ones in SpongeBob who made time feel real. They struggled with memory, they forgot important details, and still they kept showing up. In a world where nobody grows older and nothing changes, that made them heroic in a way nothing else in Bikini Bottom could match. Even if your best years were behind you, your story could continue. Courage could look like confusion. Being tired didn't mean giving up. That kind of legacy doesn't require a dramatic send-off, but it deserves acknowledgement. Something that says, you were here, you mattered, you won't be forgotten. Instead, the show froze them in time, as if legends could be paused, as if legacy could wait. But here's the truth. All they ever needed was for us to remember. Not what they could still do, but what they'd already accomplished. In that way, maybe they were never really gone. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy never got a proper goodbye, but maybe they didn't need one. Some legends don't end with applause. They fade into reruns. Even if the show left them frozen, we didn't. We still carry what they represented. So while SpongeBob never gave them a final episode, we did. And if Bikini Bottom taught us anything, it's that just because something's not on screen doesn't mean it's gone. Sometimes it's waiting or living on in the stories we keep telling ourselves.